What if I told you Van Gogh woke up today? What if right now, Vincent Van Gogh was standing in the middle of Times Square, barefoot, paint-stained hands trembling, looking up at a giant screen with his own swirling sky shining down on him, bigger than he ever dreamed? Imagine him, in that old brown coat, the same one he wore the day he died, clutching his hat, eyes darting at strangers rushing past him, and then seeing it. His name, his work everywhere. Posters, tattoos, prints on mugs, murals covering entire buildings. College kids with dyed hair and headphones, wearing his starry sky on their jackets without even knowing how much he suffered to make it. Imagine him realizing that now, in this loud, chaotic world, he is one of the most famous artists who ever lived. That the Starry Night is in the textbooks of children across the globe. That people pay millions just to hang a piece of his chaos on their walls. The man who died thinking he was nothing, who once traded paintings for food because nobody wanted them, who couldn't afford to heat his room and used the last of his money to buy paints because that was the only way he could stay alive inside his mind. What would he feel if he saw this future? You see, when Vincent was alive, he sold one painting. One. He spent nights staring at the ceiling of asylum rooms, ears bandaged, wondering if he was cursed, if he was insane, if the colors in his head were just poison from the world that hated him. They called him mad. They called him worthless. They whispered about him in cafes while he dragged his tired feet through muddy streets, trying to find a place that would let him sleep for the night. He was the crazy man in the yellow house, the lunatic with a paintbrush. That's all he was. That's all the world told him he was. But what if, just for a moment, he could step into a gallery today where people line up for hours just to stand in front of his work in silence? What if he saw a child, no older than he was when he first sketched in the margins of a Bible, reaching out to touch the glass in front of the starry night, eyes wide, seeing hope in those swirling stars? What if he saw people who have depression, people who have lost everything, people who feel alone, standing there crying, because somehow, in that thick paint, in those bold colors, in those violent brushstrokes, they see their own pain reflected back, and it makes them feel seen for the first time in years. What would it do to a man who died believing he was a failure? Imagine him standing there, shaking, trying to understand how the chaos that once nearly killed him became the chaos that heals others. The confusion in his eyes turning to disbelief, then to tears, because suddenly it would all make sense. All the nights he spent alone, whispering to himself that maybe the colors meant something. Maybe the darkness would break if he just kept painting. Maybe the storms in his mind could mean something one day. He would see that they did. He would see that even though he felt like he was painting for no one, for nothing, in the darkness, in silence, the world was waiting for him, waiting for his madness to become their light. But imagine how cruel that would feel, too. To see people spending millions on his work when he couldn't afford a loaf of bread. To see galleries with marble floors and golden lights when he had to paint by candlelight, shaking because he was hungry and sick, the shadows of the asylum creeping into the corners of his mind. To see how the world loves him now when all he ever wanted was to be loved then. It would break him. It would heal him. It would confuse him. It would complete him. And maybe, just maybe, he would smile. A small, tired smile with tears in his eyes, because he would finally know the truth, that what you create in your darkest moments can become the light for others in theirs. That your pain is not pointless, that your chaos is not meaningless, that your life, no matter how broken it feels, can echo into the future in ways you will never see. If Van Gogh came to the future, he would see that the world didn't ignore him forever. It just wasn't ready for him yet. And maybe, in that moment, standing there under the glow of his own starry sky, he would whisper to himself the words he needed most when he was alive. You were never worthless. You were never crazy. You were ahead of your time. That's why, when you see the Starry Night, don't just see a painting. See a promise. A promise that even if the world doesn't see your worth right now, even if you are alone in your chaos, even if you feel like your life means nothing, there is a future you will never see, a person you will never meet, who will need what you are creating in the dark. And for them, For you, it will matter. Van Gogh didn't know his chaos would heal the world, and you don't know how yours might too. Imagine him walking down a crowded street, shoulders hunched, clutching that old hat against the wind, passing by storefronts with bright neon signs that spell out his own name, Van Gogh, printed in gold on coffee mugs, hoodies, and phone cases. Everywhere he looks, people are wearing pieces of him. A swirl of yellow and blue on a tote bag swinging from the arm of a young woman rushing to catch a bus. A tiny Starry Night tattoo on the wrist of a man tapping at his phone while waiting for coffee. Posters in dorm rooms. Profile pictures on social media. His brushstrokes, once thick with loneliness and hunger, now scattered across the world, carried by people who don't know how cold those nights were when he was painting them. He pauses in front of a museum, glass doors sliding open with a soft hiss, welcoming him into a room of silence where people stand in reverence before his work. They are quiet, eyes wide, some holding back tears, some just staring, trying to understand why these colors pull something out of them that they can't explain. He steps closer, seeing his name on plaques. Words like masterpiece and genius written under the paintings that once gathered dust in the corner of a small room, unseen, unwanted. And he doesn't understand. How can they love him now when they wouldn't even look at him then? How can they call him a genius now when they called him insane before? For a moment, the confusion in his eyes is so heavy it's like he can't breathe. He remembers the letters he sent, the pleas for understanding, the desperate attempts to sell even one painting, the endless rejections, the laughter behind his back. He remembers the cold floors, the empty plates, the trembling hands, the nights when he wondered if the darkness would ever leave. It is all still there, inside him, raw, unhealed, echoing in the bright, silent halls of the museum. But then, he sees something else. A young artist, standing in front of his painting, sketchbook in hand, eyes filled with hope. Someone who feels alone, who feels like they don't belong, who thinks their art is worthless, standing there seeing proof that even chaos can be beautiful, that even the most broken souls can leave something behind that matters. He sees an old man, tears on his cheeks, whispering that this painting got him through the hardest nights of his life. He sees a child, pulling on their mother's hand, asking why the stars swirl like that, why the sky looks like it's alive, why it makes them feel happy and sad at the same time. And for the first time, Van Gogh smiles. A real, soft, almost embarrassed smile. Because he realizes that even if he was alone when he made these paintings, even if he died believing no one would ever care, it wasn't true. The world was listening. It just took longer than he could have imagined. In this moment, the BOISE, the confusion, the anger, all begin to melt away, replaced by a warmth he has never felt before. A warmth that says, "You were not crazy, you were not worthless, you were not wrong to believe in the colors you saw when no one else could. You were needed. And you are still needed. Because now, in a world that feels colder and faster, where people lose themselves in screens and noise, your paintings are a reminder to slow down, to feel, to see beauty in chaos, to see light in darkness. You, Van Gogh, are no longer the madman in the yellow house. You are the artist who taught the world to see the sky in colors it never knew existed. And maybe, if he could speak, if he could whisper to the people standing there, eyes wide, hearts open, he would say, "Thank you. Thank you for seeing me now, even if you couldn't see me then. Thank you for carrying these stars with you, for letting them live in your homes, your hearts, your stories. Thank you for proving that art, even art made in silence and pain, can find its way to those who need it most." And he would understand, in that final tender moment, that his life was never wasted, that his suffering was not for nothing, that he did not live in vain, because in this world, in this future, he is not alone anymore. He is loved, he is remembered, he is seen. And for Van Gogh, that would be enough. Maybe you're watching this right now, sitting alone in a small room with a sketchbook that no one sees, a song no one hears, a story no one reads. Maybe you've been told your dreams are foolish, that your art doesn't matter, that the colors you see are wrong, that your words are too quiet to matter in a world this loud. Maybe you feel like you're screaming into the void, and the void doesn't care. Maybe you think you're wasting your time. Van Gogh once thought the same. He poured himself into colors no one wanted, into canvases that gathered dust, into letters that went unanswered, into a world that told him to stop, to give up, to get a real job, to be normal. He died believing he had failed, believing he was nothing. But he wasn't nothing, and neither are you.